On this edition of the program, it's time to look forward to the midterms. But before we get to the general election, we have some very interesting primaries. There's only one way we're going to go about it, and that's a draft. Evan Scrimshaw on the show. Also, January 6th pipe bomber arrested, allegedly, details on how the first Venezuelan drug boat sank, and more. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for December 5th, 2025. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you here in Austin, Texas. Been a great week back at home. A little Portland-y here in Austin, actually. Misty, rainy. I have been reading the new Olivia Newsy book. I'm in the back portion of it now. It picks up. It picks up in the second half. That's what I'll say. Full book report coming down the road. In the update, one of the things that I have fixated on for 5 years now is the January 6th pipe bombs. Every time I'm in Capitol Hill, it's the one place I want to go. I want to go see where the pipe bombs were. I have been mystified that something that serious had been memory holed. Nobody seemed to mention it. Kind of imagine that if somebody was really planting pipe bombs around the RNC and the DNC during January 6th, that would be something that we would talk a little bit more about. I mean, it'd be something that would be brought up during the January 6th Select Committee. Did not a single second. But now we have an arrest. We'll talk about that in the update. But first, let's go ahead and get to Evan Scrimshaw, our old friend. We love talking with Scrim. The first part of our conversation is a little bit reacting in time to the Representative Henry Cuellar pardon. Bonkers, in my opinion, but you're going to hear my first reaction to that. That was breaking as we were recording this. And the Tennessee 7. So we talked all about the stakes for it in our Wednesday episode. Or a Tuesday episode. It came out Tuesday before the election. And you're going to get my reaction the day after for that. A little bit dated, right? So Cuellar is not switching parties. We talk about that. But still, that is the first part. And then we're going to draft some primaries. Looking good for the Lone Star State. Just going to spoil a little bit. Here's Scrim. It is my absolute honor to welcome back to the program our friend Evan Scrimshaw. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
All right. So this is going to air on Friday. We have an evergreen topic that we want to do, or at least one that is looking forward, and that is our draft of primaries that are coming up. But there are some news events that have transpired since the last free episode of the show. And the one that just popped as we were going live is Henry Cuellar, pardoned by Donald Trump, a victim, according to the President of the United States, of the Biden DOJ weaponized Department of Justice. Cuellar unfairly rung up on bribery charges because he dared to say that the border was wide open. Unclear if Donald Trump knows that Cuellar is a Democrat. Unclear if this is going to lead to a Cuellar party switch. Give me your initial thoughts here.
I mean, it makes no sense. And the thing about Cuellar is he is often discussed as like an old school 2010 like conservadem of the like, Robert Byrd sort of like old school, like very old school, used to win West Virginia, Montana, the Dakotas stuff. He's not. He's conservative for this iteration of the Democratic Party, but he's still far to the left of every House Republican, whoever you want to call the most moderate House Republican. He is miles to their left. He was supported by Nancy Pelosi in a 2020 primary when he was getting primaried for the first time by a squad member. Like, he's a fairly mainstream Democrat with conservative views on the border. I don't think a party switch would be in play. I think it would more likely be you get your pardon and you quietly and politely F off into retirement, because that would give Republicans a lot better of a chance to win his South Texas border seat that voted for Trump by, depending on what map, quite a lot or wholly quite a lot. But I think this is the thing about Trump, and specifically Trump 2.0, is it's very easy to get something done if you have the right person talk to him when he's in the right mood. And I'm just deeply curious, because somebody will report this probably by the time people are listening to this, of like, who was the intermediary who made this happen? Like, who on Cuellar's behalf talked to Trump and was
kids.
Like, maybe
the kids allegedly. Yeah.
Okay. So we already got that. Then that's
the rumor. That's the scuttlebutt that's going around, is that it was the kids. And I know from talking to Julie Grace Berfke about the Santos pardon that the pardon pipeline essentially goes through one woman, and I forget her name, but her first name is Alice. It's the lady that was the poster child of the First Step Act that was passed in Trump 1.0. She's apparently the person that is like the gatekeeper, and then you get to Trump. And so she doesn't appear to be the most stringent. She has a big heart, let's say. So if somebody comes in and explains all of the pain that has come from, this scenario and why they deserve a pardon, then you really just need the magic words when it gets to Trump, and Biden DOJ is one of them.
Yeah, no, I mean that sounds about right. I mean, Trump has always been susceptible to the last person that he talked to. There's a reason why, Mark Carney seems to, Trump can be mad at Carney about other things, and then they get in the room and Carney, sweet talks him a little bit, and it's all fine. The Zoran meeting, of course, I don't think anybody expected it to go as well as it did for Zoran. Like, Trump has always been susceptible to it, but he seems more susceptible than ever to like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Might as well. I'm the president. I can do stuff.
The Zoran thing was interesting because, obviously they are at different trajectories in their career at different moments where true believers are believing truly. But I almost wondered, the sense coming out of that was like, oh, Zoran showed that he could be a statesman. That he could go into a room that was not necessarily the friendliest, and he could do well. And so we'll see exactly how the federal funds wind up coming down the pike on whether or not he did something good. But I wondered whether or not some of his base, especially now that he's in the world of governing and not in the world of campaigning, if we are at the phase where, wait a minute, is this what I signed up for? A afternoon of frivolity next to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to come delivered with results, but I mean, there's like a very online portion of his base that is going to hate every single quote unquote compromise he makes.
Yes.
But you also have to remember that Andrew Cuomo did get, 40 something percent of the vote, like that a Democrat only got 50.8 or 50.9% of the vote in New York, which means that even if he loses some of his very terminally online, no compromise base, there are a lot of mainstream Democrats who he can be more favorable to.
Yeah, and he can appeal more to, because he does seem a little bit more dead on, like he's not going to get a bunch of bearded Brooklynites to tear rich people out of their condos and penthouses.
For sure. My thing with that is like, what was like the New York thing they bonded over? Because Trump is like aggressively a New Yorker, and I mean that as like a great compliment. But like, whenever people have talked about Trump, like he loves New York. He loves New York sort of like cultural institutions. And like, did they just talk about like best Broadway play they've ever seen? Did Zoran just like let Trump talk about the time that he went to like opening night of Cats or something? And like, he just did that for 5 minutes, and then Trump loved him because he got to tell some story, or when he met whoever in whatever iconic New York restaurant. Like, I want it because like that's the thing about Zoran, is he's so damn personable. Like, I'm curious if that was the way that they just bonded. I think Trump respects him.
I honestly think that Trump respects him, and I think Trump respects him for one reason. The people that Trump made nervous when he was running, that sent a bunch of people scattering and begging for weird alliances, Zoran did the same thing. I think that there was an element that Trump really enjoyed about Andrew Cuomo coming hat in hand to him and saying, please, 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 can you talk Sliwa out of this? Or can you please give me a tacit endorsement that, gives Republicans a permission to vote for me? I think Trump really enjoyed that, but I think he respected the fact that Zoran made them do it.
Yeah. And I think there probably was a bit of mutual, like, Andrew Cuomo, really, that was who we were going to elect to our city.
I mean, this is like whenever people talk about Trump running, and it's always like, oh, it started with him at the Obama Correspondents' Dinner. Like, sure, look, I think that that's a part of whatever the stained glass version of the Trump origin story that people will one day create. But in my head, Donald Trump ran for president because he golfed with too many politicians, and he's like, these guys aren't smart. I'm smarter than them. I could do their job. And I think there's an element of, why not me? I can come up with ideas. I can go do things that he sees of himself in Zoran. Now, their ideas for things are very different, but even, as Trump said, he's like, oh, sometimes Zoran was talking about things that sounded like stuff that I would be into.
Yeah, because I think that's true, and I think that's a good diagnosis of why Trump ran. I also think it's just like wildly funny that there were all these clips of Donald Trump being interviewed by like what passed for hard news journalists at CNN in the 2000s, just opining about the Iraq war. It's like, why is Donald Trump being asked about the surge in 2006? Like, I've never really understood why the media made Trump like,
he started writing books. He started writing political books. And so that's how he got on. Look, Donald Trump will talk about what people want to talk about. He's never been particularly discerning into doing it. There's a reason why, for as many quotes as he has about whether or not the surge in Iraq was going to work, he also has commentary about the Twilight cast love life, because that's just what people wanted to talk about at the time. I think what he diagnosed was that politics was becoming pop culture, and that's what people wanted to talk about more and more. He was captivated by the Twitter version of pop culture pretty early, and now he's a 2-term president.
There's somewhere there's a sliding glass doors moment of, could Condé Nast not have just made him a like culture critic at large, given him an endless budget to go do and see everything he wanted, to go to every Oscars and Emmy after party, and just be irreverent and funny? Because the other side is the bills. If they allow him to buy the bills, then is he just fighting with Jerry Jones and getting into, he has an endless stream of ESPN coverage at that point where, he's just a part of the landscape in that capacity. But, I don't know. I feel like one way or another, we were headed to this moment. Donald Trump was just the first person to realize that the gate was open. For sure. You got like a hot take on Tennessee 7?
Oh, do I, Scrim? So as we are recording this right now, the last I saw, it was like 9 points. Who knows where it's going to land ultimately? Probably below double digits. But I'm going to squint and say it's I'm going to squint and say it's 10. Like, that obviously is a 12-point swing from where it was. If you are a Republican, then that should scare you. But I don't think that this race should scare you. I think that this race kind of holds serve to the problems that were very apparent to anybody who understands politics rolling into this midterms, which is, A, it's very hard to keep your majority. In fact, it almost never happens unless there's some gigantic world-shattering event that the American people want stability more than they want change. Number two, Donald Trump's coalition is particularly fragile. You've traded voters that are easily motivated versus voters that are difficult to be motivated. And three, Donald Trump's not going to be on the ballot. So Donald Trump can decide he wants to make this all about himself. He can decide to nationalize the election and say, vote for me, vote for Trump. That's how it goes. But we don't know exactly. I mean, by all accounts, he's less popular than he was in 24. Will that change by the time that a year rolls by? Who knows? But you would assume that the environment is probably going to be democratically inclined, anywhere between D+2 to D+8, maybe. And if that's the case, then yeah, all these people should be scared. I don't know if this story, if what happened in Tennessee last night necessarily tells us a lot. I found it interesting that Democrats almost immediately online went into was Afton Ben the right candidate conversation, as opposed to just taking the victory on, hey, 12-point swing, watch your ass in the midterms.
So, I mean, look, a lot of people have a lot of agendas on the moderation v true progressive argument. A lot of those people feel the need to make every single thing about that fight, which is deeply frustrating. I think the thing that's most interesting to me is, I agree that this did not illuminate something that if you were paying attention, you didn't already know from previous specials, from the state ledge specials that we get sort of, every week or so from Virginia and New Jersey, obviously. I think the thing about it that was so fascinating to me, and the reason why I sort of give it more credence than I would a normal special, this was 2022 level turnout.
I agree with that.
This turnout was incredible.
Turnout.
This was not one of those like, oh, everybody kind of forgot it was happening. It just kind of showed up on a Sleepy Tuesday. Yeah. 20% of presidential turnout came out. Okay, but like, does the swing mean anything? This was midterm level turnout. This was 2022 level turnout. Now, that seat's definitely grown in population since 22. I expect that it'll be, because it's like the growing bits of the Nashville like suburbs. Yeah. But you're really looking at a situation where, like, in isolation, it's not the most interesting data point. In combination, it's just another blow to the idea that, like, this isn't working however we want to define this. And I think Republicans are going to have a really, like, it's going to be really interesting to see what month the, oh my God, could Democrats win the Senate media narrative takes place. To be clear, I don't think that's a correct media narrative. I think that they will walk into the midterms as heavy underdogs to win the Senate. That's not my point. But there will be a month when everybody is bored and they start doing could we?
Well,
could
what
Dems?
About Sherrod Brown? I don't know.
What
Vivek
about
is
Sherrod?
not doing so well in Ohio.
Right. Sherrod, maybe, if Peltola runs, if Democrats get the right candidate in Texas, but we'll get there. We'll get to Texas, I'm sure. But like, there's going to be a media narrative like March, April. When does the Senate conversation start to happen? I think, again, falsely. Republicans are almost assuredly going to win the Senate. But because the House is going to be, the House is going to end up being essentially it's going to be known that Democrats are House favorites, and that's going to be boring to talk about. So, like, when does the conversation when do we try the like, ooh, what about the Senate? Because everyone's just bored. I'm going like April 15th is my over under, I think.
Tax day? Are we looking at tax day?
Tax day.
I think that will come more when we get through these primaries. And we will see how much Democrats fall in love with some of these candidates, or whether or not there are big, brutal, bloody primaries that leave the Democratic core kind of torn. But I think that's going to determine whether or not we will get the big, I don't know, maybe.
So here's the case for April. Texas has a top two runoff.
Mm-hmm.
If Jasmine Crockett gets in, she has an event on Monday. It's sort of implied that that's an announcement event on filing deadline day, which is completely insane. You're launching a Senate campaign on deadline day, but whatever. If she announces, and if there's a runoff with her and one of Tallarico or Allred, I can see somebody doing the Democrats need to get this decision right because they could win the Senate piece. Like this could be seat 51, and that be what starts the train going off the tracks, because there's 10 weeks between Texas primary day and runoff day. So like they're going to need to fill time, and Jasmine Crockett and Tallarico, there's a hell of a profile. Somebody, if anybody in political media is still paid to travel and go write those.
It's a fair point. One last thing on Afton Bain. I do think that she's an interesting case study for that ever burning, that centralia fire that is the Democratic discourse on whether or not it is a centrist or a progressive that needs to be the standard bearer, mostly because Afton Bain was kind of both. Her message was exactly, almost to the note, what the centrists want. And yet she's clearly more of a progressive and had to deal with the progressive baggage of things she said over the last 10 years on social media and in recorded formats. And she was unable, I think on both, she was kind of an ill-fitting suit because she isn't quite the, Ford truck ad, music bed, let's just talk about affordability centrist that some of the centrists want. It was an ill-fitting suit there. And she was also unable to Zohran-like talk her way past things that she's said in the past. And that was, it demonstrated to me like, hey, none of this prescription matters. It is the candidate that kind of puts it together, even if Afton Bain was always going to be hitting into high headwinds.
That's very true. I think the other thing I'll say is, yes, I believe that centrism is an electorally winning, is an electoral like asset, generally speaking, when you're trying to flip seats held by the other side and when you're hitting into a Trump plus 22 district. However, I do think that centrists sometimes forget that a believable progressive is better than a centrist who's faking it. And there can be bad centrist candidates and there can be good progressive candidates. And I think sometimes it's like, just pick centrism, just pick progressivism. It's like, how about we pick somebody who doesn't very obviously seem like an ill-fitting suit?
Yeah, I agree. And also, I always find this kind of conversation so tiring from the outside because ultimately it's about issues. What are the issues that you are honing in on? And that's what picks things up. And if I were to build a successful Democratic candidate in a lab, I would say you pick some of those, top two centrist issues that, the affordabilities, the like absolute 80-20, people trust Democrats more than they trust Republicans on. And then maybe one little spicy progressive thing that they are into that gets the base super excited, that the progressives can say, look, I don't think that they're the best people in the world, but if they can get this one thing done, if they agree with me on one thing, then that's enough to get me excited and put a bumper sticker on my already crowded Subaru.
So you mean Zohran Mamdani without any of the things that you said in 2020 or 2021?
Basically. I mean, I think that's a reason why Zohran was good is because he led with this idea of like these almost libertarian permitting reforms things. Like they were, I was talking with somebody who's involved in libertarian politics, and, he was going on about the Zoran stuff. And I'm like, look, Zoran succeeded on the permitting reform stuff because he went forward-facing problem in, whereas a lot of libertarians get caught up on the solution and then explaining how that's going to affect people on the way out. So he didn't talk about permitting reform. He talked about halal be expensive. What if halal was less expensive? Awesome. That's all people need to hear. They don't care that, it gratiates people to hear that he has a plan, that he's like, oh, okay, well, the problem is that somebody pays somebody else. What if we just let that person buy it directly from the city? Cool. That's something that you would read in Reason magazine, but they would only focus on the idea that this bureaucracy is issuing a thing to another bureaucracy, and it wouldn't focus on the delicious halal. And that's where Zohran was good. He had a kind of a panoply of ideas, one for each constituency, and he was credible in saying it because they were all sort of off the map. Why don't they do this?
Yeah, and it was a way to make him seem like a more moderate, reasonable person of being like, oh, I don't think all government regulation is good. You have to play against type a couple of times. And like, like socialist opposing government bureaucracy. Oh, maybe he isn't
everything.
Maybe he isn't just like, maybe he can think about issues as they come up and won't just play by the usual rules of his ideology.
Yeah. And not just a caricature of a DSA member. All right. We're going to do our draft right after the break. This is your update, brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. It's where you need to go if you want to support the show. Why not? Why not? Why not go support the show in a Lorne Michaels impression? Go ahead. Come on, man. What are we doing here? Let's talk. This is the number one story for me. A Virginia man by the name of Brian Cole Jr. was arrested and charged for planting the pipe bombs found outside the DNC and the RNC on January 6, 2021. The first major break in the 5-year investigation. Attorney General Pam Bondi and the FBI Director Kash Patel credited the Trump administration's renewed focus, criticizing prior inaction by the Biden FBI. Officials offered no motive, co-conspiratorial info, or a link to the Capitol attack, saying that the arrest stemmed from extensive data and forensic review, not new tips. Court filings say purchases from 2019 and 2020 tied Cole to the bomb components. Cole faces federal explosive device charges carrying up to 20 years each. A lot more that we are going to go through on this, but let me walk you through some of this story as I have understood it. So this was not the biggest news event that happened on January 6th, obviously, but it is a very interesting one. And it's been one that has consistently stayed in focus because it seemed a little bit odd that something that was as serious as this, pipe bombs outside of the RNC and the DNC, not but a few blocks from the Capitol, had not been solved. The person on camera seemed to be talking on the phone or using their phone. That means that the cell towers would have been pinged. The cell company said that the FBI got those records. So a lot of questions as to why it took 5 years to crack this case. But there's also a media component to it, and that was covered in CBS. The Blaze, a few weeks ago, named a woman that they said was the pipe bomber, and they identified her through a gait analysis, the way that she walked. There was a distinctive walk to the pipe bomber. That was false. And apparently that came because there was a oversight DNI report that named her. That memo got leaked to the Blaze, and the Blaze then did their own research on it. But according to the FBI, they named the wrong woman. And that woman was exonerated because she was able to show timestamp video of herself not at January 6th or January 5th when the pipe bombs were planted. So bad job by the Blaze. It appears that it was a good job by the FBI because the affidavit seems to nail this dude pretty cleanly. They got his cell phone. They have his car being parked in the area at the time. They have receipts of him buying all the components for the pipe bombs at Home Depot and at Walmart. There's all, it seems like this is the guy. But it also seems like all this information has been in the FBI for a while. So why? Why now? That is the big question. And then, of course, obviously, this man will have his day in court. If he is similarly not guilty, then he will have his chance to argue it. But I'm glad that this is being moved on. Because, and here's the reason why this story stuck in my craw. Because January 6th is an incredibly memorable day in our country's history. And obviously had a lot of political ramifications. But this is a part of it. And, you know, people forget this, but there was a video that happened around, 2021 era, 22 era, where AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was talking about how she was terrified by the police rushing her out of her office in the Rayburn building during January 6th. A lot of people were making fun of her because she's like, oh, your office isn't anywhere close to the building. You're lying. You're exaggerating. This is fake. She wasn't lying. She was evacuated out of her building, but it wasn't because of the protesters that were coming in during January 6th. It was because of those pipe bombs. So this had a real world effect. And there was, there's information, there's video of Secret Service agents who allegedly knew that there was a pipe bomb, but they didn't have anything to, they didn't seem particularly bothered by it. They let cars and people walk by. A lot of that fed into the conspiracies that this was an inside job. The FBI didn't find anybody because it would be awkward at the Christmas party if they arrested somebody that had done it. That was the idea. That was the conspiracy. And that initial woman from the Blaze, it's one of those stories where it's almost too perfect. You can always get screwed on those. But she was a Capitol police officer. She went to work for the CIA. We have no idea what Brian Cole Jr. allegedly, his motivations. But based on that affidavit, I have a hard time believing that the FBI just came up with all that information within the last, 10 months since Kash Patel and Don Bongino have been a part of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. I don't know, man. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Navy Admiral Frank Bradley told congressional lawmakers that he never received a kill everybody directive from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth before the September 2nd U.S. strike on an alleged drug smuggling boat in the Caribbean. His denial counters a Washington Post report alleging that Hegseth issued the verbal order. Both parties on the Intelligence Committees say Bradley confirmed no such instruction was given, only detailed written orders. Still, Democrats have become alarmed after reviewing strike footage, saying that 2 distressed survivors were killed without posing a threat. Congress is investigating why multiple strikes were ordered and has pushed the Trump administration to release the full video and the exact directives given by Hegseth. I've said this before. This is a point of frustration from even ardent Republican stalwarts and allies of the president in Congress. They are cheesed off that the administration has not been more forthcoming about this because a lot of those are military guys. They know the rules of the road. You know, I thought that the Washington Post story was a little weird. And the way that people were running with it was also almost intentionally, not inflammatory, but like they were yada, yada, yada-ing a little bit. But Frank Bradley was named as the guy who was running point on that. And you want to something that a lot of people aren't mentioning is like clearly this did leave a memorable lesson for the administration, because in one of these other attacks, there were survivors and they were rescued. So clearly, at some point down the road, before all this happened, before this broke loose, there was a conversation inside the administration that if they did not kill everybody on the boat, that they were not going to hit them with another missile. Now, our friend Ryan Macbeth has said on his channel that he doesn't think that anybody is going to be particularly punished for this, mostly because when you are in the room for things like that, there is also a lawyer in the room. And the lawyer is telling you whether or not what you are doing is legal. Now, whether or not the lawyer is to be trusted, that's a whole different story. But that is what Bradley is telling Congress. Whether or not that will calm the nerves of Republicans, I doubt it. Finally, President Trump has plans to announce a second phase of the Gaza peace process before Christmas, including new governance structure and the Trump-led Board of Peace, U.S. and regional officials say. Phase 2 involves further Israeli withdrawal, deployment of an international stabilization force, and installation of a technocratic Palestinian government vetted to include Hamas. Tony Blair, Jared Kushner, and others will serve on an executive board beneath the Board of Peace. The U.S., Israel, and regional partners are close to consensus while negotiations continue with Hamas over disarmament and relinquishing their governing power. The administration aims to finalize all elements within weeks. Good luck. I mean, I don't want to sound snotty about that. Like, I legitimately hope that this works for the region, for the people of Palestine. I legitimately do hope it works. I legitimately hope that Hamas is disarmed. But I doubt it. I mean, I don't know. Reports that there was some flack between Netanyahu and Trump over the last few days. Netanyahu now openly asking for a pardon from the president of Israel. You better hope. That'd be a hell of a Hanukkah present for Netanyahu, but I don't know. I don't know enough about Israeli politics to know whether or not that's even plausible. Netanyahu, a very divisive figure in that country. And that's your update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com, where you need to go if you want to support this show. The draft is here. Let's get back to Scrim. All right, and we're back. The Bill Simmons rule of podcast production. If you have a topic that you really want to talk about, but it's a little esoteric and hard to understand, well, friends, we just make it a draft. The rules of this draft are for primary contests that will be happening in the midterm year, and you are selecting per party, right? Because there is at least one state that I know will probably go twice in this draft. Once for either party. Scrim, I'm going to give you the first pick.
Ooh, that's okay. Well, that means I get two of my top three. So I'm very grateful to you for that. Texas Senate Democratic.
All right. Oh, that's great. That's great because I had the flip on my board. Now tell me why.
Because you have Colin Allred, who put in an extremely good performance. I think outran Kamala Harris by like 6 points against Ted Cruz. And he's somehow like third on the odds board right now to be the nominee. You have James Tallarico, who was a state house member, gained a lot of prominence when Texas Democrats left the state. Mm-hmm. Has been praised by Barack Obama when he went on the last episode of Mark Maron's podcast.
Did the Rogan. He went on Rogan. He's very much viewed as the next Beto O'Rourke, or the better O'Rourke, I should say. Better O'Rourke, yeah.
And then, so even if it was just that primary, endlessly fascinating, so interesting to see
that doesn't go number one, though.
That doesn't go number one. Jasmine Crockett's about to enter the primary, probably.
Yes.
On filing deadline day.
Mm-hmm.
To throw a grenade in the mix.
Yep.
And, you have this weird thing where, like, Tallarico and Allred both are better candidates than her in terms of chance of winning a general election. Depending on the polling, she might be in first. And she is just completely screwing everybody's plans. And now you're looking at a situation where Colin Allred might go from one of the best Democratic overperformers in 2024 to having to potentially drop out of a primary to save Democrats from running a complete vanity exercise in a state that, depending on what happens in the race that I'm pretty sure you're taking, with your first pick, might actually be somewhat winnable.
Yep. Yeah.
It's a complete calamity for Texas Democrats that nobody can tap Jasmine Crockett on the shoulder and say, no, I absolutely, with all my heart, am addicted to this race. Jasmine Crockett doing a LeBron-esque decision about, I don't know when I'll announce. I'll see what my internal polling says. I'll do it by Thanksgiving, and then not Thanksgiving, and then nothing in my internal data has made me less likely to run. Just announce already. Pick a side. Go to Miami. Form the Heatles. Whatever. Just do it. Go.
Yeah. She's going to take her talents to, I guess all of the places in Texas where you need to excite Democrats to win. The only reason why I didn't have this higher on my board is because the thing that has to happen to make it that high has yet to happen. Now, it might happen. We expect it to happen. She is hinting that it is happening, but it has yet to happen as of recording. And then it might happen Monday on filing deadline. But then again, who knows? Maybe Obama comes down from the clouds and says, hey, this is not your time. Trust me, you've got a better shot here. There's a future for you. The problem is, though, is that there's no leadership in either party, really. There is a leader on the Republican side, but he's a lame duck. So you're eventually going to see cracks form and all that. And there is no consensus leader. So it's like, let's say Obama came down or came out publicly and said, Jasmine, for the love of God, we have a shot to win this. Don't do it. I don't know if she'd listen.
Yeah, I don't either, especially if he did it in favor of, a white man who has taken money from the Adelsons. Yeah. It's just, I figured that you were going to take, I knew what you were going to take immediately. And so I was like, I can take what I want. I'll get my other pick at 3.
Yeah.
And you can, and then you can take, I mean, can I just spoil it?
Let's just go. It's the other side of this.
Of the exact same race.
Of the exact same race. Because the thing that had to happen to make this one interesting did already happen. And Wesley Hunt has entered this race. And so now there is, I think, the premier under the radar for the sickos political story is John Cornyn going to realize he's dead? And is the Senate Leadership Fund going to realize he's dead? Are they going to avoid Ken Paxton being the nominee? Because right now, that is the race. It was Cornyn versus Paxton. They were trying to keep Wesley Hunt out of this. They poured $50 million in the state to raise John Cornyn's profile and talk about what an amazing ally of Donald Trump he is. But his relationship to the Republican base has withered. Ken Paxton is a nightmare scenario for Republicans. There was a rumor that Cornyn was going to retire before he got that cash injection over the summer, and that would be Wesley Hunt's way to slip in. Hunt goes in anyway, but now, every single day he's pumping out stuff to reporters about how much Cornyn is DOA, that all that money has gone for nothing. And, Hunt would be able to beat Paxton. Hunt would probably be able to at least get the double endorsement from Trump. And he is a more likable, affable, connected to the Republican base guy. But will Cornyn realize it? Or is this going to go into a absolute drag out, a 3-way primary? That's the question. Trump world is not behind Hunt. They are tacitly behind Cornyn. They are aligned with the Senate Leadership Fund as of now, but there's zero chance that Ken Paxton is not going to get at least 1/2 of an endorsement from Trump. He's been way too loyal to Trump throughout this entire process. And yet Paxton is just a dog of a candidate. He is not only, he's super Trumpy to the point where he's going to connect with the MAGA base, but he is a black hole of charisma. He's scandal ridden. He just got divorced from his wife, and there's God knows what in those divorce proceedings. It is a potential nightmare scenario for the Texas GOP, to the point where those Democrats are salivating at the chance to run against Ken Paxton. And yet, I think that's the question. Will John Cornyn realize he is dead? And I have no indication that that's going to happen.
I don't think so. And I'm trying to remember the last time I've seen a race with this much internal polling, where the internal polling is so wildly the same that Ken Paxton is sort of like mid to high 30s, depending on how hard you push the undecideds. And yet Cornyn's people are like, this is a 35-33 race, and Hunt's in the teens. And Hunt's polling is basically like, 35-25, baby. We're tied. And it's just, I think the polling, Cornyn's polling is too good. His internal polling is too good for him to believe that he's not in this. And I think Cornyn is a very specific kind of person who's going to want to believe that once the voters get into a head-to-head with him, they will back him, because they won't let Ken Paxton really make Texas a swing state. That they won't risk it with Ken Pax. And I don't know that I would make that same bet, but I think Cornyn's going to make.
I would not.
I absolutely would not make that bet. But here's the thing: I'm not trying to guess I'm not trying to say what John Cornyn should do. John Cornyn should have retired 9 months ago. If he gave anything of a crap about the Republican Party of Texas or helping the president or any of this, he should not have done
his own legacy.
Or his own legacy, any of it, all of it. He should not have run again. Like, he should have retired. He should have, left on a relative high. And because here's the thing, if Ken Pax is the nominee, put aside whether or not like thoughts about blue Texas or Hispanic swings, any of that, that is going to be an extra $200 million in spending.
Yup.
Between the candidates themselves and supportive PACs. That is the NRSC, the Senate Leadership Fund are going to have to spend another $200 million probably that they don't want to have to spend fighting a Tallarico or an Allred.
Because remember, you have to play in 4 major media markets.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to play in 2 massive media markets in Houston and Dallas, and then 2 mid-major media markets in Austin and San Antonio, which are each separate stations. Like this is big. This is a huge spend that will probably not need to happen if either Wesley Hunt or John Cornyn are the nominee. It will need to happen if you need to rehabilitate Ken Paxton in the minds of a lot of Republicans here in Texas that just don't plain like him.
Yeah, he's a huge social conservative, and so more socially conservative than a majority of Texans. He he basically ran even with Ted Cruz in 2018, the last time that they were on the ballot at the same time, which sounds like, oh, fine, until you realize that Greg Abbott won by like 12 or 13 that year.
Yeah.
So like wildly underran the rest of the like statewide ticket. He's a horrible candidate. The divorce proceedings, by the way, his wife is
on
just
biblical grounds.
On biblical grounds. She's like a state senator.
Yeah.
Like she is not some nobody who will just wither away. No, she has a political base of her own.
At any moment, she can write another song about her husband, which is a thing that she's done a lot. Look up Ken Paxton's wife. She's famous for writing songs about her husband and singing them. But this one might be a little bit more Taylor Swift than Stand By Your Man.
Yeah, no, it's going to I almost refuse to believe the Texas Republicans are going to be stupid enough to run Ken Paxton just because I almost don't think Democrats have the karmic juice to get a Ken Paxton nomination. What have we done to deserve your great glory? And if I know that, and you know that, and everybody with the brain knows that, how are they going to be stupid enough to let Ken Paxton win?
Because Donald Trump will not deny him a endorsement. Donald Trump prizes loyalty above most things in life. And few people have been more unquestionably loyal to Donald Trump than Ken Paxton. That is one thing for any and all of Ken Paxton's ample foibles. And we could probably do a longer segment on this. One thing for which he has been steadfast, apparently far more loyal to Donald Trump than he has been to his wife, according to those divorce proceedings. But he has been there, and Donald Trump, I do not in any way believe he will deny him an endorsement. The question is, could somebody split it? So Trump could probably run Hunt out of the race if he just split it between Cornyn and Paxton. But Hunt's very loyal too. And I don't think, if you're looking at telegenics, which Trump does, Hunt cuts the figure of the future of Texas Republican politics. His aggressively open collar is something that I think Trump would like to see more than John Cornyn. And Cornyn.
Is there any good ambassadorships they can give Cornyn, some European capital or something? Seriously, if I were a Republican, make a goddamn deal already. Get him out of the race. Because I think in a head-to-head, Ken Pax beats Cornyn, but Hunt beats Ken Pax. Do we agree on this?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I totally, I mean, well, the Democrats just came out with their own internal polling, which I think is there just to rile the beehive. But I think that's, I don't, again, like you've said, none of these polls have been particularly crazy. There's none that show anybody clearing the field. That is all Paxton at like 30 and then a split between Cornyn and Hunt on by some metric, but Cornyn can't do it by himself. You know, Cornyn can't beat Ken Paxton by himself. Hunt can, and Hunt can very easily split. I can very easily see the split thing between Paxton and Hunt. Two great MAGA warriors, the Truth Social would read.
Yeah,
but that's my number one.
I think it's a great number one. Those should have been the first two picks off the board in my view, and now I get to take my third overall pick, Maine Senate for the Dems.
Ooh,
the old
Janet
guard.
Mills, Graham Plattner, and then the poo-poo platter. Obviously, Graham Plattner, real welcome to the league moment a few months ago. But by all accounts, none of that has changed the polling at all. Janet Mills looking to be a 77-year-old freshman senator. What? How do you read this?
I have no idea. I have no idea, because here's the thing: we have a couple of polls with post scandal, with post tattoo gate polling, but not the highest quality of pollsters. It seems like the sort of penetration of that scandal, like how many people actually cared about it, is unclear. It's also unclear whether or not the reason that Mills was losing in the initial polling was just because she kind of hadn't been around and running for very long.
Yep.
I could totally see a universe where Maine Democrats decide we're not going to listen to the establishment. We're done with their nonsense. We have tried it your way against Susan Collins, and we need to, play for the guy who has the higher ceiling and the way lower floor.
Yeah.
But you could also just see like it's a two-term governor of a very popular state. It seems fairly easy to me. Maine's an extremely old state, so I don't know that the 77-year-old freshman senator stuff will be as much of a negative as it would be in a Texas, hypothetically, or a much younger, Sunbelt state. I am just fascinated by it because I remember seeing somebody show the responses to, I think it was like a Ponce video or some video talking about the scandal, and on Facebook the comments were, keep going, Graham, don't let don't let this drag you down, don't let the fake news media. And then it was the blue sky comment section, which was just apocalyptic and drop out now immediately. And I think that is an overly sort of trite sort of duopoly, but I think there is a real divide in the Democratic Party about whether, how and when to, I don't want to say cancel culture because losing an election is not being canceled, but about when sins of your past sort of matter, and how much do they matter, and how much are we supposed to care? And I think that's a really quite an interesting fight in the Democratic Party. And it's really wild to me that, despite the fact that a sitting two-term governor is running for a Senate seat against the single best Republican electoral performer, or second best, I think Murkowski's better, electoral performer in the Republican caucus, Susan Collins and Janet Mills are the second and third most interesting people in this in talking about Maine politics right now.
Yeah.
And that seems incredibly funny to me, that this primary really does seem to be more of a referendum on Graham Plattner than it is about Janet Mills or electing somebody who can beat Susan Collins.
Not a great sign for Graham that everybody that gets close to the inside of his campaign runs out like they just saw a murder. He's having a hard time keeping key staff there. that suggests to me that maybe there's more going on there, or maybe he is especially hard to work with. Maybe those are things that will bite people in the butt as we get further down into this process. That being said, it looks like, at least by the figure he cuts, that this is just a candidate that meets the moment. And my only notes on how he handled the scandal was that he wasn't aggressive. He wasn't more aggressive in like naming Chuck Schumer and Janet Mills. That's supercharged fuel for an electorate that wants generational change in their party. I do think that there's a real PTSD from Democrats about Biden and about age. And like, yeah, he might come off as raw and kind of dumb, but I don't think people mind that. They would rather somebody raw and unpolished that is young and has the quote unquote right ideas than they would the perfect, I've won several times statewide kind of candidate. And that's why I do think this is a fascinating race. It was on my board. But I don't like right now, the way I read it is that it's kind of more over than it is interesting.
We're a long way to primary day.
Yeah.
The reason that I still think it's 3 for me is the one that if we had done this 6 weeks ago, would have been like, and Maine was still was sort of in this holding pattern. I think the one that would have been next on the board for me has sort of, I'm kind of feel more it's over about that one. So Maine sort of staying where it is. I just think my sort of proposition about this is like, if Janet Mills were just like slightly more electable, I think this primary would be over like in her favor. But like, she's not polling well enough against Collins for a like proper electability argument to really work.
Yeah, and she's got tape of talking about how great of a job Susan Collins has done. Like, there's the winner of this race so far is Susan Collins, because I think she's like, cool. I'll take either. Yeah, I'll take either.
For sure.
Run the young Nazi or the old person who said I did a good job. Either way, awesome. I'm into it.
For sure. What's your second pick?
So I think I know where you're going to go next, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to go California governor.
Ooh, not in my top 5.
Yeah. I love this race, mostly because I wonder how many people will try to bundle into this and how much money is going to be spent to topple what seems to be, a Katie Porter who's got Katie Porter tendencies. Not a shock, but nobody that is in the race right now has the kind of progressive bona fides that Katie Porter does. She has a locked in audience that isn't going to look anywhere else. And so everybody else that's running here, Xavier Becerra, Antonio Villagrosa, Eric Swalwell, Tom Steyer joining recently. I think that they're all kind of failure to launch. And the big question, because it's a jungle primary in California, so everybody runs together in the primary. You got these polls that show, either Steve Hilton or Chad Bianco, the two Republicans, running, close to her. That would mean it's a Republican Democrat general, which means Katie Porter is your next governor of California. So what I'm curious about, does Kamala endorse? Does Newsom endorse? Does anybody else try to get into this? Or does nobody care? Let Katie Porter go to Sacramento. What's the worst that can happen?
Counterpoint, I'm like pretty sure Eric Swalwell is gonna ride endorsements all the way to the governor's mansion, and it won't end up being that close. Katie Porter is absolutely hated by a bleep ton of people in California. She made a lot of enemies with how she handled the Senate primary against Adam Schiff. She is hated I think there's absolutely going to be anti-Porter consolidation. I think Villagroso and Becerra are going to want to get out, and I think they are going to end up around Swalwell. I think Steyer, progressives weirdly like Tom Steyer. I think it's because of the clean energy stuff, but honestly, like, I am a little befuddled by that. But like, I think he's going to take more of her votes. I think Swalwell gets the sort of establishment consolidation. You know, he's picked a fight with Kash Patel this week, which I think is, you know, not at all. Not, you know, I think is you know, dare I suggest that it has any motives to try and boost his California governor poll.
Oh,
it
no,
entirely does.
They're not. Eric Swalwell, craven political animal? No.
No, I think Swalwell has to know. I don't think you get in and give up a safe house seat this late in the game unless you're pretty confident either that your internal polling says that you basically jump Katie Porter immediately, or you're pretty confident that you've got one of Gavin or Kamala endorsing, or both.
Why did his launch look like garbage?
Yeah, that I can't defend.
I mean, because that's the thing. Like, if this were, you know, he's got the big slick rollout and it's like, okay, Eric Swalwell, grimy house fighter, you know, like, we're going to put that a little bit in the past. We're going to debut a new version. But like, he just looked low rent and bad, which kind of makes me think like, yeah, you would think that he has all that in his back pocket, but if he did, he'd probably have the money. And if he had the money, that rollout wouldn't look like crap.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like if Katie Porter was really going to be the nominee, she would have been able to break out of 15%. You know? Like, I feel like she should be able to beat Steve Hilton, who it's absolutely wild that Steve Hilton is probably going to be the Republican nominee for governor, given that David Cameron became wildly successful the second he fired Steve Hilton. This is my favorite thing about Americans who are like, election whisperer guru worked for David Cameron. No, David Cameron got good the second he fired Steve Hilton.
He fired Steve Hilton. Yeah, but Steve Hilton spent the rest of the time on Fox News. And when you have that kind of name ID, at least with Republicans, you know, there are a lot of Republicans in California. So, you know, look, the state of the Republican Party in California will almost assuredly be brought up the next time that we do our most terrible state-run parties draft, but a related but separate exercise. I don't know. I mean, Swalwell versus Porter, I'd sign up for that debate. That's a good debate.
No, that would be fun.
That's a good debate.
That'll get spicy. Because she clearly can get goaded into anger and into not handling things very well.
Very easily.
And like, look, I'm always conscious of the fact that like when we talk about, you know, female politicians and, you know, whatever, there can be sort of sexist language. There can be sexist expectations that they will rise above. But like, I haven't seen any male politicians in a while just straight up stop a televised interview because they weren't liking a question. Like, that is like pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with Porter isn't necessarily even that she stopped the interview. The problem is that she's prone to anger. She has a sense that she knows everything. She has a sense that she's always right, and it comes through. Now, the reason why I think she's going to be very hard to beat, at least in a spread out primary, is that there's an element of progressives that are centered around LA and San Francisco that are like, I don't care. Maybe she's mean. Maybe she's just a hell on her staff. That's just like a million other male politicians that have done it. And we do believe she's right. We agree. Governor Porter, you are right on all these things. Please go to Sacramento and fix stuff. Now, as a former California resident, I don't know if, you know, more progressive policies are necessarily the remedy for that state. But then again, I don't think that Eric Swalwell, you know, part of the thing with him is like, you know, I get it. It's crack in California to run against Trump. But like, boy, is it depressing as somebody who lived in that state for a decade to be like, guys, like there are so many problems in California. Can you please think about any of the like dozens of just fixable problems that exist in that state? Can you please run on that instead of like, I'll stand up to Trump? He's not coming anytime soon. Like, you're fine. He's going to be gone. Like, for the vast majority of the time that you will be in office, you will likely, Donald Trump will not darken your doorstep. Like, can you please focus on any of the things that actually matter in that state? But it doesn't seem like that.
I have two quick last thoughts on this race. One, I do wonder if the fact that San Francisco electing a more moderate Democratic mayor and it seeming to work so far, whether that will dampen enthusiasm for progressive politics amongst sort of left, like sort of not crazed lefties, but sort of people who might have voted London
moderate.
Breed.
Yes. Wiener's or not Wiener. The mayor of San Francisco is moderate for San Francisco. Like,
sure. Yeah.
To be honest, you want to know who else was moderate for San Francisco?
Gavin Newsom.
Kamala Harris.
Ooh.
She was Attorney General in San Francisco. That's a lot of people forget is that Kamala Harris is actually best suited as a California moderate. And she ran away from that during the primary. She ran away from that when she was a state AG. But that is her best thing. Kamala the cop is actually her best suit, and she's never felt comfortable wearing it after her term in San Francisco.
Two, do we think Katie Porter's team in debate negotiations is going to try and allow the whiteboard to be behind her?
Of course. And if not, she's going to pull it out like Herschel Walker pulled out the badge.
Oh, my God. Okay, 3 for me. Michigan Senate on the Democratic side.
That's where I knew you were going.
Oh, really? I'm that predictable, eh?
Well, I also because it was on my board too. I love this. I love this primary.
Haley Stevens. This would have honestly been above Maine if not for the fact that I kind of think Haley Stevens has already like lost it. Big lead. Mallory McMorrow is sort of is quietly rising. You have
so let's lay this out because I think all these other races have kind of gotten big flashes of national publicity. This one has kind of mostly existed for me on Twitter, following Democrats on Twitter. Lay out these 3 candidates that are essentially making up this race.
Haley Stevens, moderate, was class of 2018 House member, got redistricted into a safe seat, beat Andy Levin in a primary 4 years ago or 3 years ago. Very pro-Israel, backed by Democratic majority for Israel. Chuck Schumer's preferred candidate. Bit of a crazy person, went viral for just incoherently screaming on the House floor like 4 years ago. Mallory McMorrow, state senator, I believe.
Very telegenic.
Very
Liz
telegenic.
Smith protege.
Spoke at the 2024 DNC, gave a great speech. Is sort of left of Stevens, but not like a proper leftist. And then is it Abdul Al-Said?
Abdul Al-Said.
Left, sort of like proper DSA leftist candidate, ran against Whitmer in the gubernatorial primary in 2018. Sort of well-respected, not a complete lunatic, I think. But Stevens was the, front runner. Schumer's backed her. She is going around the state to basically no one showing up to any of her events. McMorrow is just running like a slow and steady wins the race. There was some polling, I believe, last month that had Stevens' lead down to 1, and McMorrow within a point. I think sort of general expectation is that McMorrow is probably going to end up winning this thing fairly easily. McMorrow is the one who had the digital ad before week 1 of the Super Bowl or week 1 of the NFL season, talking about price rises for all of the things that you would want to do. It seems like she's sort of coalescing into the consensus wing of the party. The reason it's still 3 for me is 1, Stevens is still technically leading. So even though it seems like it's slipping away, it hasn't slipped yet. 2, there's a universe where if Stevens sort of collapses enough, then McMorrow v. Al-Said becomes the primary functionally, which could be an interesting tell. And then you have all the sort of Michigan of it all, the Dearborn, the Howe, how this race is going to play vis-a-vis Gaza. Are Democrats just sort of content to lose, Muslim majority areas? How does that all play? I still think it's quite interesting. It's I'm going to say the only vulnerable Democratic held Senate seat right now. John Ossoff, of course, should be in a vulnerable race had Brian Kemp, decided to run.
But the dumbest dually.
But it's that or Mike Collins, and it's just well, that's not really going to work. So, Ossoff is fine. And I think this is another test of Chuck Schumer's influence in the party, because if Janet Mills and I think more, we know that Haley Stevens is going to strike out, that's Schumer going 0 for 2. And that is 2 Democratic primary electorates that have said, F you, we don't care. We don't care what you think.
The juice anymore.
And frankly, it's even more indefensible for Schumer to have meddled in Michigan, because McMorrow is a mainstream Democrat, right?
Yes.
If this were Stevens v. Al-Said, okay, I'd understand it. Wouldn't love it, but I'd understand it. McMorrow spoke at the DNC.
Yeah.
She gave a great 3-4 minute speech about Project 2025.
McMorrow is a star. You can watch her and you can say, I could see this person being a mainstream spokesperson for our party going forward.
Right. She's just it's just more evidence of Schumer's just complete lack of control over his party and lack of control over where the Democratic electorate is.
Yeah. Do you think this one gets nasty? This was the reason why I had this circled, was because we know Cornyn, Paxton, Hunt is getting nasty. You will almost assuredly see the Democratic primary should everybody get in Texas get nasty. But aside from that, and my pick that'll round everything out, I thought Michigan had the highest possibility where we might see some mud get slugged.
Well, Stevens is gonna. So I think the thing is that McMorrow and Al-Said kind of don't have to go with Stevens yet. But the thing is, those two could get testy with each other if they both sort of smell blood in the water. I mean, an advisor for Haley Stevens was attacking famed Twitter account UMitch voter this week on Twitter. So clearly just a super competently well-run campaign when you are attacking fairly prominent elections.
We are deep into the world of the online characters of polling Twitter when we get into attacking UMitch voter, which is you Michigan vote. He is a Michigan-centric, I think, student at the University of Michigan.
Former UMich student who I think has gone to New Jersey for medical school.
Something but this is very has deep in the weeds here.
Right. Why are you there is just everything is fine with our campaign tweet is raising a lot of questions answered by her tweet. What are you doing?
Exactly. But she was harassing UMitch voter that he didn't tweet about a favorable Stevens poll, and was like, hey, you love tweeting about polls, tweet about this poll. But this is Haley Stevens is not going to go quietly. She is going to fight this fairly nastily. She will have a lot of money to accuse, to accuse McMorrow and Al-Said of many, many things. And if Democratic majority for Israel continues to fight on her behalf, she is going to, that could get very messy in a state where tensions are already very high on the right side of on what the sort of right side of Israel Gaza is. And that is not a fight that I think any Democrats really want to be fighting right now. All right.
What's your last pick?
My last pick. It's a little off the board. It's a sleeper, but I think it's going to pay off. The Florida Republican governor's race.
So that would have been if we did 4 rounds, that's where I was going to want to go.
Byron Donalds right now looks like the absolute cruising ahead favorite. Ton of money, big head start, huge name recognition. Trump endorsement, the Trump team desperately wants to erase Ron DeSantis's hold on that state. They want to bring it into the MAGA fold, and Byron Donalds is the way that they are going to do it. And if you were just looking at that, I can understand where you think that this is a very boring primary, despite the fact that a bunch of randos are getting into it now and they're attacking him. However, whenever I talk to anybody that knows anything in Florida Republican politics, the way that they grit their teeth when you talk about Byron Donalds being the next governor, not because they don't like him, but because they know something that is in an Oppo file, and I have heard whispers of what it might be, two things that it might be, they don't believe. I've been out and out told that there are sitting members of Congress that are they don't know who it's going to be, but they know it's not going to be Donalds because the skeletons are eventually going to come dancing out of his closet and there will have to be somebody that plugs in for him. So who knows? You know, a lot of things get whispered about in politics. A lot of things get whispered about in Florida politics. So I don't know if any of this stuff is true. All I know is that if I'm looking at a race that seems settled now, that might explode in the most Florida way possible, that's it.
So I think this has the best chance to be like an A-tier race over like a Georgia governor on the Dem side or something like that, which or like a South Carolina governor on the GOP side. Like, okay, it'll be interesting, maybe, but like those aren't fun. Those aren't exciting. Those are, Florida has the chance to blow up. I mean, who's this guy? James Fishback was his name, I think.
James Fishback.
He's getting quite a well done media tour for somebody who I've literally never heard of before your media tour.
On football, watching it from my mom's house in Orlando, he was very well represented on television.
So clearly there are some people trying to come up with some contingency plan for, clearly people still think there is blood in the water that they can get Donalds, which doesn't seem like it should be the case unless there is really something in that Oppo file, because frankly, it seems quite like he should win. He's got the Trump endorsement. I don't think DeSantis is really standing in his way. Should be Donalds in a walk, but it's not.
Will DeSantis? DeSantis has lied in wait. There was the rumor that Casey was going to run and that, maybe they could split the endorsement and it would be Casey versus Donalds. DeSantis world despises Donalds for selling them out. But unfortunately for the DeSantises, they very personally fired and tried to ruin the career of somebody who now could be described as the most powerful woman in the world, Susie Wiles. And she will show no mercy until they are crushed and driven before them.
Yeah, no, it has the potential to be great. I'm looking forward to it.
All I know is that nobody who knows things
thinks this race is
locked up. Yeah, as much as anybody who's just looking at the numbers would assume it is. Because there's nothing right now publicly that tells you anything other. This should be like what Vivek is in Ohio. Like similar ideas, with Florida being an even redder state, that essentially cleared the field. They're going to run. That's going to be it. They'll have whatever happens in the general, with Ohio being a more competitive general election than Florida will be, because the Florida Democrats don't know their ass from their elbow. But yeah, it's a lot of rumors. Who knows whether or not anything will explode? And to again be clear, I don't know if this is true. I'm just telling you what people have whispered about.
No, it's very interesting whispers. How are you feeling about the Steelers?
Terrible.
I mean,
I feel terrible about the Steelers. How am I supposed to feel about the Steelers? The Steelers are look, they have an extraordinarily, a very highly paid defense that can't seem to put two decent games together. They made a lot of moves in the offseason. Few of them seem like they have paid off particularly. And, people have talked because obviously Aaron Rodgers is going to be the magnet. He's not been the problem on this team. The offense has not been the problem on this team. The offense has been better than the offense the last two seasons. If we had the defense from the last two seasons with this offense, we'd be certainly far and ahead in the AFC North. And we may or may not be battling for a high seed in the playoffs. But it's the defense that is the problem. They cannot get stops. They cannot stop the run. It does not appear that the Jalen Ramsey trade with Minkah Fitzpatrick has paid off. It's bad times. And I don't know whether or not this is the time. It feels a little like it did at the end of Cower, where the team seems like they're about ready. The fans seem like they're about ready. To see Tomlin move on to his next chapter, but I don't know. I feel bad. I feel very bad if you want my honest opinion.
Counterpoint. You guys are already through the Bengals. The Ravens still have to play the Bengals one more time. I think the Ravens schedule is harder than yours. I think you play twice, and then I think their 3 remaining games are slightly harder. And you are still tied for the division lead.
I know. I mean, look.
Are you excited for 9-8, the 4 seed, and to get blown your doors off by Josh Allen in a 4-5?
The thing is, I thought that game was like. Here's the reality about that team, just in general. They can't turn the ball over. Like, and for all of the guff that the offense got the previous 2 years, the reason why they were so conservative is because they knew they didn't have the talent on offense. And so the one thing that had to happen was don't take the chance, don't turn the ball over. If they turn the ball over, they lose. And so Aaron Rodgers turns the ball over, then gets injured. Mason Rudolph, who used to be the prototype of high floor, low ceiling, don't turn the ball over, turned into a turnover machine when he's gotten his chances. So I don't know. I thought we had exactly the game plan that we needed with the Bills. There's really been, oddly, there hasn't been a game this season where I felt like they were not competitive with the other team. I think that they just make so many stupid decisions and have been unable to adjust. That's the other big thing is that, but then again, at various moments, the offense has looked amazing. And then at various times, the defense has looked like world beaters. The 2 best wins they have against New England and Indianapolis, they looked phenomenal. They looked like some of the best defense has been played in the NFL. And then other times they look absolute horrendous and they can't get stops and they can't get off the field. So it is a confusing time. I don't know. And then they lost Broderick Jones. So, weirdly, the one thing that hasn't happened is they haven't been able to get the run game going consistently. And that's been a lot of consternation in Pittsburgh media is like, why has that not, at times it looks like it could run over anybody. And yet, they weren't able to get it going against Buffalo. And they also weren't able to take advantage of the fact that Buffalo was selling out to stop the run. So I don't know. I think Rodgers has probably hit his spoiled milk phase. I don't think that for however skittish a 42-year-old, which I am, would be in an NFL game, I don't think adding a broken hand makes him more brave. I'll put it that way. Which means he's not able to stand and deliver. So theoretically, you would say, okay, well then go with Mason Rudolph. He can get his head knocked off and still deliver, but he's sucked. So I don't know. Maybe both of them will get injured and Will Howard will come in and this will be our own mini Tom Brady story. Who knows?
I mean, that would be quite fun. I'm increasingly optimistic about my Packers. I like the Thanksgiving win. I like the win against the Vikings. I know JJ McCarthy is an abomination, but like I'm starting, and that Panthers loss doesn't look quite as bad now that they just went and beat Matt Stafford. No. Like in that game, like we were in the red zone like 5 times and we couldn't get a touchdown. Like, that's going to happen over the course of a 17 game season. I'm starting to feel better about the Packers. Mike has been great. I'm so happy with that trade. Like,
yeah, I think, look, when things get cold, that's really the big thing. The big question now is like, we're now starting to play the games where these are the kinds of games that are going to win up till the Super Bowl, right? Where, especially in the NFC North and the AFC North, where they're going to be cold, they're going to be bitter. Can you run the ball? And can you make the big play when you need to in low scoring games? And I think that the Packers seem like they're able to. The question with the Packers is whether or not their offense is going to be healthy, especially since they lost Kraft.
Yeah, but we got Christian Watson back, and I think, we still have Matthew Golden, who I think can do a lot of sort of like different routes. And, I think we just got to get the ball to our guys in space and let them work. I think the offense is starting to click. And I think that LaFleur learned from that Eagles game when he just called too conservative of a game. He was a lot more aggressive on Thursday, and it worked to our advantage. And I think that's the kind of sort of success that, especially if we beat the Bears this week, you can just see this snowball in a great direction for us. And I'm very excited.
Very good weekend. Very good weekend of games. And a very good conversation with our friend, Evan Scrimshaw. Scrim, where can people find you?
Scrimshaw unscripted.substack.com for political thoughts. I know I say this every time I come on the show. I will be covering 2026.
Eventually.
The problem was that Mark Carney decided to schedule the Canadian budget for Virginia and New Jersey days. So didn't really have an ability to cover that one to the extent that I would have liked. Scrimshaw on Twitter. At some point I will revive the Scrimshaw Show podcast. Buy my book, Salvation in the Storm. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
There we go. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Appreciate you.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. You can send me an email, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Find, follow, and share video clips of our program. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter is Justin R. Young. You can watch our full videos on YouTube, youtube.com. Just search for politics. Find and follow and share with a friend. Leave a comment down below. Also, we're on Spotify as well in video form. If you would like to give me a year-end bonus, you can hit me up, paypal.me/payjury. Venmo, Justin-Young-20. And my Cash app is PX3Cash. Letter P, letter X, number 3, cash. You can send me anything you like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas, 78715. Again, that is Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas, 78715. Got a package this week. To be totally honest, I don't fully understand it. I don't know what was happening. There is apparently drama in my Discord. Okay. bit.ly/jury discord, JURYDISCORD, if you'd like to join. You can ask them. We're making them famous now. There was some drama in my Discord. And I have been told somebody got banned. Now, I don't know how you get from that to what arrives in my post office box, which is an ounce of silver. So I profited an ounce of silver from somebody getting banned from the Discord, which, if that's the case, if everybody who gets banned from my Discord gives me an ounce of silver, I'm banning all of you. This is how I'm going to put Bella through college. I'm going to profit rare earth metals simply by banning the lot of you. Again, when I say that you can send anything to my post office box, you can send anything to my post office box. That again is 153184, Austin, Texas, 78715. Of course, the only place that you can get our bonus content is takepoliticsseriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes every week. That is either $3 a week or $99 for one entire year. That is 150 plus episodes of PX30 for under $100. Get it for you, get it for a friend, get it for a loved one. This makes a great stocking stuffer, by the way. It's a little pricey for a stocking stuffer, so maybe it's for someone that you really, really like. But if you enjoy this show, the biggest reason why we have a following on this show is because I am doing my level-headed best to try to separate out my own personal biases and to give you a perspective on politics that is purely selfishly motivated to be correct. I've been told that this is very rare. And I know that there's not a lot of people that do this kind of thing. So in that spirit, if you would like to give somebody in your life who you believe that their information flow could use a little bit of me, well, go ahead and get them a subscription to the show. Head on over there right now. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. The only way that you get your name read on the show, and if you really love somebody, you can get them their name read in the foundational tier, including, somebody said that we should mix up the names, so I'm going to read them backwards here. Zombie Doc, Berkeley Steven, John, Trucker, Jerry, a dog named Checkers, my mom, Gloria Young, Paul, Edison, Phil, Andrew, Sam, Edwin, Andrew, DP4 Bongo, Matt, Michael, The Borge, B, Will, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Dr. Whiskey, AB Puppy, oh yeah, it's Adam, Casey, Neil, Chiller Tomatoes, Pro Idiot, Jeremy, Sarah, Nick, G, Tom, Middle-Aged Mike, Scott, Peepaw, and L3PO. You want to join this hollowed ranks? TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Sign up at the foundational tier. We love it. We love you. We will have Bill Scher on the program next week. And who knows what else? I don't know. The news, it never stops. So we're obviously going to have a lot there. All right. That's it for today. Until next time. This is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, saying some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that has the chutzpah, that has the gumption, that has the follow through to talk about all three.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.